Halloween
Forever.
What is a thinker? A real thinker. What do you call a writer who doesn't follow the rules of sentence structure?
I don't know. It's too early for me to think on this one.
Steve, he's a rebel without a clause.
Oh.
Welcome, boys and girls, to a motherfucking mini-sode of Halloween is Forever. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve, the king of the podcast.
You just had an absolute level of disdain for that one. Just disappointment, pure disappointment in your eyes.
Yeah.
Not my best work, but
it didn't hit me. I didn't love it.
Nah, didn't land. That's all right. Can't win them all. We're here with another son of a bitchin' minisode. And this is going to be a really funny, really fun, hopefully slightly funny, but a very fun format here. We're going to talk just generally about Stephen King, one of my favorite authors. Steve, how's your where's your King knowledge lie? What's your affinity for Stephen King and his books and film adaptations?
I grew up on Stephen King and Mark Twain.
Mm.
So, yeah, like I read, aside from those two, and I would say Michael Crichton. That's what I read the most as a kid. Mm-hmm. And then at some point I stopped being able to read. So I just stopped reading.
You just lost the ability to read?
Yeah. Yeah, just, I don't know what it was. Just as I grew older, just reading made me sleepy all the time and words ran together. And I think it was an undiagnosed learning disability.
Sure. We gotta love those. Love a good undiagnosed learning disability. Yeah, I definitely went through I was a big reader as a young boy, back in, whatever, I don't know, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, pretty much in that prime Goosebumps era. Mm-hmm. I was a big into the Goosebumps. I read every one of those sons of bitches. And then really, through junior high and the early part of high school, just stopped reading, I think, altogether, unless I absolutely had to. But I was always in that was the thing I was good at. I wasn't, a great math student. I wasn't in AP history or anything, but I was always in AP English classes or writing classes because that was the thing I was good at. So I had to read a lot of stuff for school, and I think that made me not like reading. I think we've mentioned on the podcast before, and if I didn't, I'm just imagining that I mentioned it, but I was part of a first-time program in, I want to say 7th grade or 6th grade, where they took the AP, English kids and took us over to the high school, and we spent an entire year, not just a semester, entire year, studying and reading books about the Holocaust. And then we went to it was a whole Holocaust focused year of English and literature. And it was so depressing and horrible. And I hated it so much. I had to read all of these Holocaust books. I absolutely hated it. And I honestly think it turned me off reading for a few years.
That's pretty rough to be focused on the Holocaust.
Oh yeah,
I know. I read Night by Elie Wiesel.
That one was brutal. We read that.
Yeah, I know that, but that was just part of my general AP English. It wasn't, a full course. So it's I know we read Night, and I think at some point, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. That's that was. I mean, there was a movie, but that was also based on a book, right?
Yes, so, I believe it was.
Yeah, so I believe I read that as well. But yeah, that is a lot for
it was
not even a high schooler to take in.
No, we were in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was weird because now that I come to think of it, we didn't just we did probably 3/4 of the year on the Holocaust, but we started out reading. I remember we read, oh my God, what's the book with the Lord of the Flies. We read Lord of the Flies, which was heavy for a sixth grader, but I remember enjoying that. And we read a couple other things, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." And then, fuck you, Holocaust, for the rest of the year. But yeah, I actually dated a girl in high school for the big chunk of high school that was really into Stephen King, and then that got me a little bit more into Stephen King, and then I got more into back into reading horror and sci-fi and weird fiction, speculative fiction in college. But yeah, Stephen King has always been one that kind of floated around. Like I said, a person I dated in high school, she was like obsessed with Stephen King. She knew everything Stephen King. So that's what got me into a lot of the short stories and stuff. So, but yeah, we'll talk about some Stephen King. We'll talk about some of the books, but we'll focus probably disproportionately, because we do mostly talk about them spooky movies and TV shows and that sort of media. So we'll talk about some of the film adaptations and TV adaptations and that sort of good stuff today. And also, your boy, so this is what spurred this. Your boy just got back from Maine. So I just went on a little vacay with the fam up to Maine. We actually stayed in Bahaba, Maine, and mostly spent time in Acadia, stumbling around the woods and things like that. But my brother and my dad and I actually went on a day trip to Bangor, aka Derry. I think Castle Rock is basically Bangor too. I don't know. But it's Stephen King made up land. That's where he grew up and spent a lot of his early years writing and still spends time now. And that's where, the King houses and all that stuff in Bangor, Maine. So we did a little bus tour of Bangor, Maine. That was Stephen King tour, which was really fun. So we'll talk about that a little bit here. But before we get into all that sumbitch and nonsense, we got a couple of things we got to do at the top of the show. First of all, let's do beers first. You got a little beer over there you're drinking on?
Oh, I got a beer. And it's time for you to check your watch, because it's gloop glop o'clock.
Oh, shit. Oh, my God, Steve. That looks like Ovaltine that you took a shit in.
Yeah, buddy.
That looks yucky. That looks nothing like beer, that's for sure.
No, it doesn't.
Can you hold it up and I guess what flavors are in it?
Yeah, you go ahead. Take a guess.
Let me see that ugly bitch again. Oh my God, it's so thick and chunky. Is it banana?
No bananas.
Okay, because it's so chunky, I assumed it was banana. I don't know. It looks like in Austin Powers when he drinks the diarrhea and says, "Oh, it's a little nutty," because he thinks it's coffee. It literally looks like that.
Yeah, it is very unfortunate on just the way it came. Like, there's so much solid gloop glop shit.
Ugh.
Yeah.
What is it? Tell me about it. I don't know if I want to know, but I'm morbidly curious now.
It is from Abjuration Brewing.
Okay.
It is a sour ale, root beer slushy.
Oh, no. Sour too?
Yeah, with vanilla soft serve and milk sugar.
It's root beer. So it's like a root beer float.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the root beer float.
Fuck, I love a root beer float.
Mm-hmm.
Love a root beer float. And they have some yummy ass root beer and like a lot of local craft sody pops up there in Maine, which I sampled an assortment of. We're up there. Had some great root beer. But again, that looks more like diarrhea. Float.
Yeah, it looks more like diarrhea. I will admit this is a rare miss for Abjuration. Because like they even have a root beer soda sour. Yeah. That like it's just the root beer flavor and the beer is clear. It's not all like glooped up with the lactose and shit. Mm-hmm. Like when putting the ice cream in this didn't do it any flavor or like any favors at all. Yeah. And it comes off like more sour and you lose like the root beer flavor. Yeah, this one isn't my favorite. I was excited for it because I do actually love like just their normal soda sour root beer. Mm-hmm. It's really good. It tastes just like root beer. It doesn't have like this unappealing look to it like this does. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know. A rare miss. I mean, it's okay, I'm gonna still drink it, but it's not my favorite.
It looks absolutely horse shit. But they do have speaking of root beer floats, I forgot to bring some home. I should have. I'm stupid. But they have a company, a soda company up in Maine called Old Soaker that does a blueberry soda that is everywhere.
Ooh.
And it's freaking delicious. And they do blueberry soda floats. And then they do root beer once as well. They have a really good root beer as well. It's not like, I wouldn't call it as good as Sprecher, but it's really good. It's a little lighter. It's not as like, Sprecher is like syrupy almost, you know, which is so thick. It's almost like a root beer float in and of itself, but it's really, really tasty. But yeah, you just ruined root beer for my whole life. So thanks. I'm going opposite. I'm going straight up beer. I'm going real ass old school beer. And there's a reason why I picked this one. One, because I grabbed the 12 pack of it. I haven't had it in years when I was in Maine. And it is Geary Brewing Company Original Pale Ale.
Oh yeah.
And probably if you live in Western PA, Ohio, you might not have seen this for a long time. I know we used to buy Geary London Porter as well as the Pale Ale probably at Vintage way back in the day. I don't think they distribute that far anymore. I think they're mostly just Maine at this point. But they do a lot of really, and they, of course, they have like a hazy and that sort of stuff now, but they were known for one being the first craft brewery in Maine, like post-Prohibition. And I think maybe the first east of the Mississippi. I think they started in like 86, which would put them right in that wheelhouse for the first craft brewery in the East Coast post-Prohibition. And I looked it up before this because I was curious. They hold craft brewing license number 13 in the United States. So they are very, very early on. Obviously, they were after the Sierras and the New Albions of the world and some of those guys on the West Coast. But as far as the East Coast is concerned, and of course, as you might imagine, being from Maine, from the East Coast, especially up north, very English focused. So really, really classic. I would call this like a strong bitter, or even, or some people refer to it as an ESB. It is, a little over 5%, which is pretty strong for an English pale ale, but, moderate ABV, but very Burton-esque, like very central, English Midlands classic, assertively bitter. I think I looked it up. It was only 38 IBUs, but it's aggressively bitter because I'm sure they Burtonize the, super hard, high carbonate water. And just like a lot of just like kind of biscuity English malt, English hop character, just very classic English style pale ale. The other reason why I picked this up is Matt Geary, whose parents started Geary Brewing Company, a former coworker and friend of mine, excellent guys, one of the nicest guys you ever meet. His parents started Geary Brewing Company in 86 when he was, a very, very wee lad. His dad, David Geary, actually regrettably passed away last month. And he is a pioneer of craft brewing in not only New England, but nationally. He's one of the pioneers of craft brewing. So thought I'd grab because I can't get this here, grabbed a 12 pack of Geary's Pale Ale, went through most of them while I was on vacation, and saved myself a couple for this, and raise a glass to Mr. Geary. I don't believe I ever met Matt's dad, but if he was anything like Matt, he's a lovely guy. I know he's very well liked and loved and respected across the craft beer industry. So cheers to David Geary. But also just a lovely beer. If you love like super classic English styles, like they nail them. Like as unsexy as you can imagine, you know what I mean? Just right down the super authentic Burton style ale. So
yeah, I will say though, because I've had it, they also do make a really good blueberry ale.
They do.
So.
Everyone has blueberry beer up there. Holy shit! It's weird because
I'm sure.
the tap lists up there. Obviously we were on vacation. We stayed in Bar Harbor, which is, very touristy little town there. And Bar Harbor Blueberry Ale was one I used to drink way back in the day, which I don't know if that still exists. I didn't see it anywhere. There were 100 other ones. I mean, every place you went in had at least one blueberry ale on tap, certainly, especially in the summertime. But the other thing you saw a ton of, you saw IPAs, you saw hazies, things like that you would expect, but very little in the way of lager. I did have a really great one, I think it was called Mechanic Pills, a really great Czech Pills from a local spot up there. But boy, howdy, they get behind the brown ales up there.
That makes sense.
There's just brown ales fucking everywhere. Nut brown, like you're lucky if you see one or two, on tap in the course of a year at, a good craft beer bar around here. But everywhere up there, it's like, it's a staple. You're going to see a brown ale on tap at every place that has like any decent craft beer, draft lineup.
Yeah.
So I have a brown ale on them. Yeah, you fucking do. You have fucking brown out ale, diarrhea ale. All right, so we got the beers out of the way. Excuse me if I'm a little hoarse on this one. I'm getting over a hell of a nasty cold, so I'll try not to cough directly into the microphone. But and I'll try not to crunch my Hall's honey lemon cough drops either. Let's do a couple other things. First of all, as we discussed last time, we have our Showdown episode coming up here real damn quick. So next episode will be our Showdown. Tell the folks about what's going down with this here Showdown, Steve.
Yeah, so we got September Showdown coming up, and we got a guest, and our guest is going to be from the recently resurrected Decaying with the Boys podcast.
Hell yeah.
If you guys don't know who or what that is, that's our buddies Matt and Adam. Adam he's like a home brewer, close to being a big brewer whenever he wants to make that jump. But yeah, he's does his home brews as Bash Brew, and then him and his helper buddy Matt, they started a podcast to do something during brew days, and basically they sit around and talk about UFC, wrestling, whatever else comes across their table that they want to talk about.
We're going back to the Jojatorium, guys, with the Decaying with the Boys crew. Matt's going to join us, like Steve said, and the topic for the Showdown episode for September, y'all picked it. It is 80s slasher one-hit wonders. So for those of you who are new to the podcast, because we do get a whole dang shitload of new listeners this time of year, as always, fuck you. You're a bandwagon fan. You should feel bad about yourself, but also we're pleased to have you. Here's how this goes. We deliver you some hot, steamy, greasy content every Monday here on the interwebs in the form of a podcast episode. But once a month, the first Monday in the month, we do a Showdown episode, which means it's Steve, it's your boy. And then we get a guest from, who knows? It could be anybody. We get a guest on the podcast. And we have selected by that point 3 potential topics from our big old ever changing, ever evolving spinny wheel of topics. We spin it 3 times. We get 3 topics. Usually they're like a subgenre of horror, or they're, it's a particular director or performer or whatever. Right. And we put those 3 potential topics out on the social medias. If you follow us at Halloween is Forever on Instagram, or at Hallow Forever on Twitter, you can vote on what of those 3 topics you want to see for the following month. We're also on the Tiki-Talkies and the threads and all that sort of stuff. And by the way, if you want to send us potential topics to add to the wheel, you can DM us or comment or do whatever the hell you want on any of those social medias, or it's halloweenisforeverpod@gmail.com. You can also do it that way. We actually have an upcoming guest that reached out to us recently on the emails. Actually, we've been getting quite a few emails lately, which is weird. I think it's because I finally started mentioning that we have a fucking email address again. Anyway, doesn't mean I'm good at checking it. Usually Steve is way more diligent at that than I am. But feel free. We will respond. But if you have a potential topic to add to the wheel or whatever, send it to us that way. This time around, we had 3, but 1 reigned supreme, as it is apt to do. In this instance, like I said, it was 80s slasher one-hit wonders. So that would be an 80s slasher film that didn't really get a lot of attention past that initial film. So it didn't turn into a big, franchise, didn't have any sequels, probably didn't see anything in the form of remakes or anything like that. So that said, we now each pick a movie that's associated with that topic. And then on the Showdown episode, we argue about it. Somebody's getting a Northern Lights suplex. Somebody's probably getting put in the Boston Crab or something like that. Eventually, we vote. Either Steve, myself, or the guest will take home that son of a bitchin' championship belt, that strap to throw over the shoulder, that shoulder candy for the entire damn month. Unfortunately, last month, Anthony, our guest, big tone dog from the they call that a movie podcast. I don't think he is necessarily embraced big tone dog as a nickname that I've been trying to really push out there. I don't think he's really using that in his everyday life, but he did take home that son of a bitchin' strap from us. I'll tell
you what, Brian, if I ever invent time travel, I'll make sure to go back to when we were in college and start calling him Big Tone Dog in college. Yeah. That way, it'll start sinking in.
Yeah. Better chance of sticking if it happens in college. Now he's like, oh, I'm a grown up. I don't go by stupid nicknames. Well, I'm going to keep pushing it. I'm going to push it as hard as my little fingies can. So this time around, we have Matt instead of the Big Tone Dog. And Matt from the Decaying with the Boys podcast has already selected his topic, his film. We typically, we're relatively new to the whole guest thing. We typically let the guests kind of pick theirs first, right? And then after that, I guess the question becomes which one of us gets to pick next. I have one more recently. I'm just going to put that out there. I don't know if that needs to be the determining factor. Although I will go as far as to admit that I did kind of drop the ball last episode. Like I kind of handed Big Tone Dog the strap. I do take responsibility for that. And I also picked an M. Night Shyamalan movie, which again, I might have been self-sabotaging there. I'm not entirely sure what was going through my brain.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what you were thinking.
Yeah, I really dropped the ball on that one. Any case, Matt's pick, he has informed us for 80s slasher one-hit wonders, Shocker from 1989. The Clive Barker epic with just some wonderful quips. I kind of, before we started recording, Steve and I were chatting, and he told me what Matt's pick was. And I was like, oh, yeah, I mean, not that much of a slasher. And he was like, well, Freddy's a slasher, Shocker's a slasher. And I was like, this is actually alarmingly similar to Freddy. I kind of feel stupid that I've not realized how Freddy-like this is in the past. I've maybe only seen Shocker once or twice.
Which you said Clive Barker, but you meant Wes Craven.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I said Clive Barker as I'm currently reading Books of Blood.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's why I said Clive Barker. It's sitting by my feet right now.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of a hallmark of what Wes Craven was doing in the 80s of making a supernatural slasher.
Yep.
It always starts with somebody who was a bad guy, a human, and is transformed into something worse. Yeah. So Freddy gets
human
burned
bad guy now becomes ghost bad guy or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or electric bad guy but, in this case.
Yeah, so that'll be an interesting. Right. This will be an interesting watch. I have not seen it in years. I feel like people have started to look upon Shocker in a more favorable light in recent years. Like there's been a lot of nostalgia that's come up around it. I'm also always interested to see when we have these decade type picks where our picks fall, because this is right at the end of the 80s. And honestly, if you would have said when did Shocker come out, I would have probably said like 91. Like I think of this as a 90s movie. I don't know
Same.
why, but it is 89, so it's right at the end.
Yep.
Mine, I'll give you a little spoiler here, and Steve, I think it is only fair that you pick next because, like I said, I really just fucked us pretty hard last time around. I really let the team down. All three of my picks that I'm considering, which I do have in order. Actually, I have one that I want to do for sure. If you happen to pick it, which I don't think you will, but you could, then I have two other ones to fall back on, are all early 80s and have a very different feel than Shocker in that way. So interesting to see. What are you thinking about there, Steven?
So I have one that's from early 80s that it's unlike anything, but I'm also worried that'll get me in trouble.
I would say all three of mine are bold choices, which may again be self-sabotage, but
I'll have to do like a lot of defending if I pick one. The other one is late 80s, but it's not American, so it doesn't come off as late 80s American.
Well, one of mine is a co-production that doesn't feel particularly American. And actually, I think one of my other ones is Canadian. So, like I said, out of the box picks over here. We'll see.
Yeah. Fuck. I almost want to just flip a coin on. I'm just going to flip a coin.
Let's do it.
Because I think I like both films and they're both fucking weird and crazy.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what the picks.
Give it the Anton Chigurh treatment over here.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what the picks are before I flip the coin.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make heads. 1987's Opera by Dario Argento.
Yeah, I like that movie. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's Argento, you know.
Yeah, it's Argento. It's one of his better ones.
It is. It is.
Yeah. And then Tails, I'm gonna make 1983's Angst.
Ooh, okay. I feel like I've seen Angst. I've certainly seen it. Is Angst? Isn't there a German movie named Angst?
Yeah, it's Austrian.
Austrian. Okay, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. But it is. It's.
Oh, this is that one. Okay.
Yeah, this is that one.
This is the Austrian movie. Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought this was I have seen this before, but I remember it being German, Austrian, whatever.
It's the most visually arresting, I think, even more so than Opera, but which is a bold.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what we get. Heads. I'm going Opera.
You're going Opera. I like that. I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm not like the most diehard Argento fan ever. Outside of his really big movies. I don't get me wrong, he's fantastic. He's a master of the craft. But like Opera, I remember feeling like that one was a little bit more grounded than some of his other ones, which is not saying much, but I'm interested to rewatch that one.
It's like when he's on, and then when he's off, he's like dog
on a
shit.
Different planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched his newest film that came out last year, 2 years ago or so. Dark Glasses.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, like it's definitely nowhere near his best, but it's also nowhere near his worst. It's just kind of like a thing that, like, if you need a fix, it'll get you through.
Yeah. Opera is, you said 87, right?
Yeah.
87. Okay. All right. Well, that gives me my first pick to go with, which is a polarizing movie, and not by any means a stereotypical American slasher. I had a couple. I had Madman on there. I had some other ones on there that are more kind of quintessential, North American camp slashers type of thing. But I feel like we've done so many camp slashers that I went in a little different direction here with actually all of my picks. I'll tell you the ones I didn't pick first. I had 81's Strange Behavior / Dead Kids.
Okay.
Which is a really weird, haunting movie that feels like it's grimy and like oddly realistic. Not as grimy as the one I am going to pick. And then one that I just saw for the first time that I really liked called Death Screams, and that's plural. There's a movie from the 70s, which is more like a police thriller procedural, I think it is, kind of thing, called Death Scream. This is Death Screams, plural, from 1982. But instead, I'm going to go with another 1982 film. Again, I believe it's a Spanish-American co-production, Pieces.
Oh.
If you've ever seen Pieces, it is batshit bonkers.
Yeah.
Disturbing, extremely bloody, silly, goofy at some points, haunting at some points. It is a absolute tonal roller coaster in a fun way, as far as I'm concerned, which is gonna require some defending. And my favorite part about it is like Spanish actors trying to pretend like they're Boston cops is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
It's so not Boston. I just spent 2 nights in Boston. And the least Boston people you've ever seen in your life in this movie, but it's bonkers and really fun. And if you haven't seen Pieces, you got to check it out. It's a tight 125 or hour 25.
Yeah. Do they pronounce it Massachusetts?
Yeah, pretty much. It might as well be that bad. I mean, there's a lot of voiceover, as you might expect.
For sure.
But it's really, really fun. Have you seen Pieces before?
It's back in my mind. So it's been years since I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised I didn't even consider that one when I was looking, though.
I was wearing my Pieces t-shirt while in Boston.
Yeah.
And that made me make up my mind because I got a lot of questions about it. Like, what is Pieces? And I'm like, are you familiar with Tubi, my friend? Have you drank of the sacred liquid that is Tubi?
I'll tell you, there was one that's actually very similar to that in production. I was considering New York Ripper by
great one.
Yeah, by Lucio Fulci, and it's, Lucio Fulci making a movie in New York. So a lot of the similar things, but the fucking duck voice killer, I couldn't defend it. Like
it's weird. I think it's cool. It is very weird. You're going to get your Fulci eyeball stuff. If you don't like eyeball stuff, isn't that the one where he does the razor blade eye thing?
He does a lot of tit stabbing. He does it all.
Fulci loves to fuck with eyes. Obviously Zombie. And then I think that one is the one where he does the like cut straight down someone's face and they don't close their eye. Yeah. And he just cuts along their eyeball. He loves fucking up people's eyes.
Yeah.
But no, I like that movie actually. All right. So just to recap here on what our September Showdown films are going to be, so you can go out there and watch them. Matt is going to talk about Shocker 1989 from Wes Craven. Dario Argento's Opera from 1987 is going to be Steve's pick. And then I'm going to do 1982's Pieces by, I'm going to mispronounce his name. It's Juan Piquer Simon, I think is how you say it. Piquer. Don't know anything else by this director. I don't know if he directed anything else significant. He directed Slugs. I didn't know that.
Okay.
The Rift, Slugs, Supersonic Man from 1979. I'm not familiar with that. He actually has 15 director credits. Pretty interesting. I didn't realize that. Many of which are Spanish. So that's probably why, especially in his later career, wouldn't have saw many of those things. Mystery on Monster Island. I don't know. I like that idea. I like that thought as well.
The Mansion of the Cthulhu, though. That sounds fun.
Mansion of the Cthulhu.
Yeah.
So some Lovecraftian things in a haunted house. Sure, those giant old gods, you know how they like to settle in to sit there and sip cups of tea in old houses in their latter millennia.
That movie came after Pieces, so he was probably inspired by all the all the lore when he was filming in Boston.
Yeah, that could be the case. I mean, Pieces is bonkers. I'm excited for you guys to watch it. I'm excited to discuss it. It is just batshit. There's one scene that honestly is one of my favorite scenes of all time. There's a lot of bonkers stuff in here. There's a lot of hiding a chainsaw behind your back. Get ready for that. All right, guys, that's going to be our showdown. Those will be our showdown movies for September. Before we get into this discussion, I want to remind y'all, we got a Patreon as well. So check us out over on patreon.com/Halloween is forever. Steve, why don't you tell the folks, especially some of our new listeners, what we got cooking over there on the Patreon, because it's pretty fun.
Yeah, over on Patreon, we got 2 tiers. We got our Scamps tier, which is $3.
Scam.
That gets you all the fun things of like ad-free episodes, because we'll be adding ads soon. We have a new sponsor coming soon. But, on Patreon, you don't have to listen to that shit. You don't have bypass.
You don't have to. We don't tell you what to do.
Yeah, bypass. You also get an extra vote in that wonderful poll every month.
Mm-hmm.
You get reviews that I do write-ups on of things that probably don't make the show, or definitely won't make the show. Like, I put up a review for Resident Evil Death Island. It's a fun little cartoon show, but I don't think that'll ever make this.
Probably not, unless we do specifically Resident Evil cartoons at some point,
or just the Resident Evil wheel in general. Because
that could happen.
There's like 6. There's like 6 of the live action films, and then there's fucking probably maybe 6 more animated films, I think.
I didn't know there were any animated films.
Yeah.
So,
they're all computer animated too. So it's like of varying degrees of good.
I can imagine.
Yeah. But yeah, so you get all that stuff. But then the other tier, the Rascal tier.
Rascal.
Can maybe instead of doing the echo, can maybe you just do a long one of just Rascals?
Okay, that's better.
Yeah.
All right. Rascal.
But on the Rascal tier, that's where you get all that. Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But that's where you get all the stuff I just mentioned. You get on the Discord, so you can watch Brian, cough and just lay in the sun and try not to die.
Finger his belly button.
Yeah.
Right.
Try not to die during episodes.
Yeah.
You can see his cool bowling shirt.
Sims Lanes, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
When I bought this, you want to hear this quick story about why I bought the Sims Lane shirt? I wore my Garfield outfit to Sims Lanes one time, and I was too hot and I was overheating. So I bought a t-shirt to wear my Garfield suit while I was bowling anymore. Just like as one does.
There you go. Now everybody knows the story, but only the Rascals can see the shirt.
True. Yep.
But on top of all that, you get the monthly exclusive podcast, Family is Forever.
Family is forever.
Which sounds a lot creepier when you do it that way. But it's simply our monthly Fast and the Furious franchise watch.
Oh, it sucks so bad. Not the podcast, the franchise.
Yeah, the movies are bad.
The franchise, the podcast, we're about to do our second episode. We just started it last month. We're about to jump into Too Fast, Too Furious. And I'm excited not to watch the movie because I'm sure it sucks ass, but to talk about how much it sucks ass is very fun. So.
Yes. Yeah. It's all goof 'em ups on that episode. You're not going to hear any kind of arty knowledge or any shit like that. It's like I'm sure when we talk about pieces and opera, we're gonna put like actual history and knowledge and research into it.
Thoughtful critique.
Yeah, thoughtful critique and praise for these wonderful movies. That's not what's happening here. If you listen to the Children of the Corn 2020 episode, that's what happens on the Family is Forever episodes.
Yeah, or that weird Indian Freddy ripoff.
Right, yeah. If you like those episodes, then the Family is Forever episodes are for you.
Yeah, so to go on over there to the patreon.com/Halloween is Forever. Give us a couple of those paper dollars. Don't be stingy. Don't be assholes about it. Give us your money. And then you get all that fun stuff. And you know what? Also, we'll send you some stickers and stuff like that in the mail. We'll do that sort of stuff for you as well. So, and also, if you want some stickers, and let's say you ain't got the $3 or the $5 a month to support your boys. First of all, bullshit. Give us your money. What are you going to spend it on? Medicine, food for your family? Fuck that. But if you don't want to invest in that way, we totally understand. Go over onto one of your whatever podcatcher, whatever podcast app you're listening to this on. Take yourself 10 seconds, do a 5-star review, whatever the maximum number of reviews are, and say, I like them big beefy boys over there on the Halloween's Forever podcast. Write a little phrase. Could be one sentence like that. It means a lot for us, especially going into the spooky season. That's where we get tons of new listeners, and we're excited to be slinking on in, slippery, sliding on into the spooky season here. I haven't got out any Halloween decorations yet, although my office is already like that year round. But I have gone through a box each of Count Chocula, Boo Berry, and Frankenberry. I have not tried the new Carmela Creeper yet. I have a friend who has secured a box for me, but I have not sampled it yet. And I have not had the new Monster Mash remix yet. But I'm starting to ease into the spooky season. I actually put down a bag of candy corn yesterday. And so, you know what? Give it a week. Let's just get into September.
Oh, you mean you set it down? Not that
you mean not put it down in my belly? No. I picked it up. Was about to put it in my cart at the Giant Eagle.
Yeah.
Actually did put it down. I was very proud of myself for just put it off for another week. Then I'll get into it. But spooky season will quickly be upon us, and we're going to get into a lot of spooky season shit here soon as well. Okie dokie. Let's get into this Stephen King business. First of all, I'd like to talk about some of our favorite book / story and film / TV adaptations of said stories. And then we'll get into a little bit about this tour that I went on, which was really fun. Do you remember what the first Stephen King book or story you read was, and what the first Stephen King, inspired or screen adaptation of it was? You happen to recall?
So I think I remember the first book being Cujo.
Okay.
Because I checked out, I don't know what you'd call it. Like, libraries are such a fucking mystery to us anymore, but
yeah.
But yeah, I checked out Cujo from the same library that I had been checking out all my Michael Crichton books from. So Cujo was the first one, but I didn't see the movie until years and years later, because it was a rated R movie, and somehow my mom just wasn't paying attention, and she just let me check out Cujo very, very young, and I shouldn't have, because I know we've been through it before, but like, one of the things that always stood out in Cujo to me was there was an extended sequence of the character describing how, like, he jacks off on his sheets, and his sheets are all stiff with cum. And it's like, at that point, like, I don't even think I was coming. I didn't even know what that was. And I'm like, I don't understand why. And Stephen King wrote it as COME.
Yeah.
In that edition of the book that I read. Maybe they've changed it and updated it since, but I was like, I don't understand. What is cum? It comes out of your penis, I guess? That's weird.
Yeah, I guess. Let me Google it. Oh, wait, Google doesn't exist. I'll just sit here confused for 6 years.
Yeah.
That's what we had to do
eventually,
guys.
I guess.
Yeah. That's what we had to do. Us in our, late 30s, 40s, and beyond, we were kind of that transition generation that we grew up without the internet, and then got the internet like when we were in middle school. So like, all of the way you operate as a human and the things that you learn about how life works, we were like the last generation that didn't just look it up on the internet. So yeah, we had mysteries in our lives at 10 years old. Like, what is cum?
You're right.
Yeah.
We had mysteries, but also like we were the first ones able to solve them. And also we're the last ones to know how any of the like dead tech works. Like I could still do a Dewey Decimal if I had to. I can do a rotary phone if I have to. But
I just saw a friend, like a friend of a friend's kid or something like that, just graduated from college with a master's degree in library sciences.
Yeah.
And I was like, what does library sciences look like now? Because back in the day, it was like, Dewey Decimal System and shit like that. We all had to learn that back in the day. So we could use the library at school. What does library sciences have to do? I mean, it's a database management, I'm sure, to a certain extent. I don't know, man. I have not, regrettably, I have not been in a library in a while. Like we used to go to libraries, like library story time with the kids when we lived in Wisconsin. My wife will occasionally do things at the library, and then she's active at our kids' school and stuff like that. So she's in the library there. I spent a lot of time in bookstores. I don't spend a lot of time in libraries. I don't know what they'd be doing. I don't know if shit be tight over there in libraries anymore. Libraries
do be tight. Let me come out and say libraries still do be tight, because especially for movie rental, if you're a person who doesn't necessarily want to like pay for a lot of streaming services and everything, there are a number of streaming services built on the library, kind of on like a national library backbone.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, and like they have a bunch of things. They're going to have like a lot of arty films that you don't necessarily like. The movie Angst that we just talked about, it's not available in a lot of places. I found it in two places. Mubi, which is the upscale Tubi.
Mubi is that fictional fast food restaurant from the Kevin Smith universe,
right?
Jane Silent Bob and all that. Yeah, right.
They have hamburgers and weird Austrian films. But then another one was like just a library operated one where like if you're a student or if you have a library card, you can rent movies from. So
yeah, I need to get in that library game. I was a big library kid in college, not having money and wanting to read things and watch movies and stuff. I discovered that you can just do all that for free at the library, which was great. And YSU actually does have a really great library. And if they didn't have a book that you wanted, you could get it from a different library and they'd mail it to that library. It was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I remember I wanted to find like some, I was a college kid, went through my Hunter S. Thompson phase, and I wanted to read like Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72, which was like, not a small book of his, but like, you don't see a lot of Hunter S. Thompson in the library, I guess. And they actually got it from like the University of Toledo library, sent it to YSU, and then they had it there for me. I was like, oh, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Back to Stephen King though. I wanted to mention something that's similar to a library, but it's also probably my other favorite book that stuck with me the most, because it was probably the second Stephen King book I read. And I was a little bit older, so it made a little more sense. Like it was more impactful and everything. But I was on vacation in Myrtle Beach, and
oh hell yeah,
I
love Myrtle Beach. It's so grimy and awesome.
Right? Yeah, it's so grimy. Yeah. And we were staying at a KOA, but like the KOA had like it had prefab trailers and everything, so you could do trailer rentals. So like you could stay at, and then they had a kind of like a community room with like a take a book, leave a book, and like the RoboCop arcade game. Those are the two things I remember the most of.
That's all you really need.
Yeah. But the take a book, leave a book, they had Desperation by Stephen King, which I think had just come out, because like that book came out in like 96.
Yeah, I know that was a later one. Because some of the more recent, really like 90s and beyond Stephen King books, I haven't really read a lot of, to be honest with you. So yeah, that one was kind of after I would say like Gerald's Game, kind of time frame is where I kind of dropped off reading Stephen King, for not because I was reading it back then, but just like around that era of King is a little bit of a blind spot for me.
Right. Yeah. So like, yeah, Desperation came out in 96. And then, so like I read that, and it's like, it's a really weird book. and people may like it or they may not. It got an adaptation in 2003 starring Ron Perlman.
That was is that the TV series?
No, it was just a movie.
Oh, because they did did they do a TV series, or was that a TV movie?
I think it was just more of a TV movie. I think it came out on Sci-Fi Channel is what it was.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. But yeah, so they did an adaptation with Ron Perlman, but this was also my first introduction to the Richard Bachman shit that he does, because he, at the same year, he released a book called The Regulators, which took a lot of the same characters from Desperation. Yeah. And it told not a parallel story, but like just a similar story. Mm-hmm. And The Regulators was also much more almost like the one story in the Twilight Zone, the movie, where the kid has like control over the world around him.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Regulators is like that on like kind of a bigger scale of like a whole town. Yeah. We should say Richard Bachman was Stephen King's Chris Gaines. Yeah.
He was trying to do like more hard-boiled type of, not hard-boiled because it was supernatural too, but like it was just it had a little bit more of a hard-boiled tone to it, I feel like.
Right. Because I mean, that's what he wrote The Running Man under. Mm-hmm. And like most people would know Richard Bachman as the writer of The Running Man, but then like I don't think it was until later, like after The Running Man came out, people like figured out, oh, it's the same guy. And then that's why he only did a couple more books under the Bachman name. It wasn't
it was weird because he did the only book that I read and then subsequently have seen the movie, which is maybe probably the worst film adaptation of any Stephen King, and there's some stinkers out there, is Thinner. I remember reading Thinner, and that was from like the mid 80s, and I believe that was Richard Bachman.
Yeah. It was.
But the Thinner, I think it was like a sci-fi-ish TV movie. Like it was a low budget thing.
It was lower budget, but I think it came out before Sci-Fi Channel was a thing. Because I remember, I think I saw that movie in the theater.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking up 96 here. But anyway, it was a stinker, an absolute fucking stinker.
I didn't hate it. I don't know what to tell you.
I thought it was just absolutely awful. And this is the thing with King adaptations. Like they get a lot of shit, the film adaptations, TV adaptations, but when you're basing it off of like a enormous best-selling author's work that millions and millions and millions of people have read, you are going to have people experience the phenomena of disappointment, not even disappointment, but the cognitive dissonance that happens naturally whenever you see a movie based on a book that you've read, and it becomes that like stereotypical kind of snobbish thing where people are like, well, the book was better. That's like a joke people always say.
Right.
Like, of course, everybody always says the book is better. You're a snobby piece of shit. Well, not really. It's just you created a story in your brain, or an image in your brain while you read this story, and it was what you wanted it to be. The movie is rarely lines up with what it was in your brain. I mean, it's just a natural phenomenon around, anytime you read a book and then watch the movie. But when you have Stephen King, who's this huge author, like, when I say like, I love Richard Matheson, and I read a Richard Matheson story, like people don't talk about that too much about Richard Matheson because most people know his stories from like the Twilight Zone.
Right.
So their first thing they saw was the Twilight Zone. And their first introduction to those stories. And when you're talking Stephen King, and he's one of the most successful commercial authors of all time, of course, more people are going to be experiencing that phenomenon who don't read a ton of other books. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it speaks to the quality of the filmmaker, depending on the movie. Because like there's obvious ones like Carrie and The Shining that just like people completely agree with, of like, oh, they got it. And even Mike Flanagan's version of Doctor Sleep was really well received, even though like it is partially built on what The Shining, or what Kubrick already established visually with The Shining. I think people are willing to accept something when it's done really well. The Mist is another example.
Yeah, that one is coming on in recent years here. And I guess to go back and answer the question, because one of the first stories that I read of Steve, well, I'll say the first movies that I saw based on Stephen King adaptations, I think the first one I ever saw was probably parts of The Shining. I do remember seeing parts of The Shining really, young, when it was like playing on TV or something like that. But I think the first one I ever sat down, like that I actually rented and then and sat and watched beginning to end, when I was, I don't know, 10 or something like that, was Children of the Corn. Weirdly enough, because that movie was such a weird social phenomenon. Like people talked about that movie a lot for whatever reason. It's okay. It's not that great. I mean, it's light years above better than the freaking remake they did last year that was pitifully, comically bad. But yeah, that was the first one that I read or watched rather. I think as far as the first, either that or right around that time, my Aunt Jill, who I've talked about a lot on the podcast in the past, who was like a hardcore horror nerd and loved Stephen King, she had actually bought the multi-tape set of the Salem's Lot TV series.
Oh, okay.
And that is, people think of it as like one thing back then, but it was like a mini series back in like late 70s, early 80s. And she had it, I think it was on 3 VHS tapes, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds
and
right.
maybe it was 2. Yeah, maybe it was 2. But I remember watching that really early as well. As far as the books that I remember reading, I definitely, the first thing I ever read, speaking of The Mist, was Skeleton Crew, which was a short story collection that had a bunch of really great ones in it. But The Mist was the very first one in the book. But some other notable ones that people, horror fans will definitely know. I'll talk about, actually, we can even jump into talking about some of the film adaptations from that one. But The Raft was a short story in that one, which went on to New World optioned for Creepshow 2. So it was a segment in Creepshow 2 with a script by George Romero and Michael Gornick, which I think we talked about in the past. I actually have a still animation cell signed by Michael Gornick from the intro to that. I love Creepshow 2. I love all the Creepshow 1 and 2, Creepshow 3. I still want to talk about that on the podcast because it's fucking shameful. Word Processor of the Gods, Michael Gornick also directed, and it was an episode of Tales from the Dark Side.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't know if I remember. I don't remember a lot about the story either, but I'd be interested to go and find a little bit more about that out. Grandma was adapted into the 85 iteration of The Twilight Zone. And then it was loosely adapted into a film called Mercy in 2014, which I did not see.
I don't think I saw it either.
Yeah. And then, of course, The Mist was adapted in the 2007 film, the Frank Darabont film, which you were just talking about, which is a fantastic film. And I remember loving it from the very first time I saw it, which I believe I did see it on like Sci-Fi or somewhere on cable. But people for a while there started crapping on that movie pretty hard because it does have some CGI that aged really horribly.
Yeah.
But in recent years, people, I think, have started to forgive that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, like at the time, I think the CGI was bad. But like the fact that there's so much worse CGI in the future, which is now, like what the fuck? Well, whatever then.
Yeah, we were not yet. I think when people were kind of shitting on it in like 2015, they didn't realize how much of the depths we were going to plumb of the CGI world.
Yeah.
Maybe at that point, I don't know.
Yeah, because also like with The Mist coming out in 2007, it's still generally kind of early for that much CGI, because like there's so many monsters in that film, and
yeah, and some of it's good. It's just, I think some of the parts that are bad stick out like a sore thumb because some of it's good.
Yeah, and like especially like at the end, those weird fucking giant elephant monsters.
Yeah.
You know, like with the tentacles and stuff. That's great. That's such a great visual.
That's great. Even like the kind of locust like mosquito-y monsters or whatever the hell they are that are, you know, being attracted to the window early on, and then the big flappy prehistoric looking thing, like that stuff's all pretty good. It's really that scene in the back room with the tentacle monster going under the door that's like, holy shit, it's really, really bad.
And it's simply because the tentacle does so much interaction with actors in that scene. Like you need physical, you know, a physical,
like a barrier,
right? Either a barrier or like it maybe just a giant hose and a green sleeve or something. Like I feel like they didn't have enough like physical things for the actors to interact with, and it just comes off like not so great.
The hit detection was off. Let's put it that way. But that movie is great. I will say, I won't go any further than this, but if you have not read the story, it's not I mean, I guess it's probably more of a novella. Like it wasn't a short story. It wasn't like a 2,000 word short story. Like it was quite a bit longer than that. I think it would probably fall into like novella kind of category. Yeah. And it does depart from the book, you know, the novella pretty well. But interestingly enough, like, or pretty thoroughly, especially at the end. But it was such a bold choice that I feel like people respected the different avenue it went a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, even King came out and said that he likes that ending. Is like, because I think famously King was really unhappy with the adaptation of The Shining.
He hated Kubrick's adaptation, and I think he hated Kubrick too.
Right.
Which Kubrick is a pretty hateable guy from what everybody could tell, but he famously hated the Kubrick adaptation. Of course, I love it. You know, I saw it way before I read the book, but he didn't like. I think he's maybe softened on this, but he didn't love the TV. The 80s, was it 80s or 90s version of the film adaptation either with Tim Curry when it first came out. He wasn't as crazy about that either.
That might be possible. But I think you're right though. I think he's softened on both since. Like I think he's fine with the Shining adaptation because obviously we already mentioned Dr. Sleep and how much Mike Flanagan brings back from that film. Like if he really hated, you know, Kubrick's Shining, he wouldn't have let Flanagan fucking put more into it.
Yeah.
So,
I think also, like, you know, Stephen King, I think it's fair to say probably over the years his ego has kind of softened a little bit too. Like he's started. I mean, listen, he deserves. He's a fantastic author, one of the, you know, best-selling authors of all time. But I think for a lot of years he was really smelling his own farts really hard.
Yeah, and that's cocaine.
Yeah, and then you know, I think after, you know, obviously he got off the drugs and the booze, and then which I didn't know a whole lot about until I took this tour, and then I actually listened on my drive back from Maine an audiobook called On Writing, which was the I think it came out in 99 or 2000 ish, which was his like kind of composition writing book, which was really interesting. It had a lot of stories and stuff in it, but it really gets deep into, you know, I know he had an automobile accident in the late 90s, but I didn't realize the extent of it. He actually got hit by a van while he was walking, and like was was very lucky to be alive and had like years of rehab and is still, you know, not fully recovered and that sort of thing. And I think that also, you know, was a little bit of a turning point for him in maybe not taking, not that he doesn't take his work as seriously, but maybe is not as precious about things as he once was.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I think I would say it's Maximum Overdrive. It had to be. once he realized how hard movie making was, then he quit.
Humbling experience there. Yeah, of course.
That's what I'm sticking with.
Mm-hmm.
And I just made that up, so it doesn't matter.
Hard to argue with that logic. Yeah. Especially but it's funny because, and we'll get into this when I talk about the tour. One of the places we went on this tour was Stephen King has a radio station in Bangor, and it actually, I think, has broadcast, through a big chunk of New England. It's called, I think it's WKIT.
Oh, okay.
In Bangor, and it's based in Bangor, Maine, and it's one of the last independent DJ driven radio stations in the country. And he does a lot of really cool stuff with it. Like, I guess he has some stipulation where, like, when one of his movie adaptations come out, they always have to do the world premiere, quote unquote world premiere, not the big Hollywood one, but they do like the first showing of it at this movie theater in Bangor. And the only way you can get tickets, unless you're part of the production, of course, is to be like the 10th caller on the radio station kind of thing. And he gives them all out. And he even, like, I guess a lot of people were like, will call and be like, hey, I want tickets. I'm this local, reviewer, big shot or whatever. And he's like, no, fuck you. You got to call the radio station and be caller 10, which was pretty cool. But so while we were up there, I was listening to, actually downloaded the app of the WKIT, which I thought was funny. King and It, of course, that I assume is what that's based on. WKIT.
That's also
it just plays AC/DC pretty much. It is just fucking AC/DC, Deep Purple, but it's all DJ driven, and there's a lot of local DJs that are still on the air like every day at different hours. So I listened to it a lot. And I guess Nickelback was in Bangor the other night, and they were just like torching Nickelback on the air. They were like, what do you say? They were doing the local weather. The ones I was just driving and listened to it. And the one DJ goes, chance of rain tomorrow. It's going to be high of 72. 100% chance of Nickelback, though. It was pretty fun. But
isn't KIT a reference to The Shining as well? It's the radio call sign.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that. I just assumed it was King and of course It. But yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, I think that's a reference to because it's when they try to use the shortwave radio to call out. It's right. I think it's WKIT 1 to WKIT 12 or something like that.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that might make more sense.
I think that's right.
But yeah, we turned it on, and my brother and I were joking about how it's just going to be all AC/DC, and they were doing one of those like triple play rock block things where they play like 3 songs in a row from the same artist.
Oh yeah.
And we flipped it on, and the very first thing was like, about coming back after the break with a triple play rock block from AC/DC. And I was like, hell yeah, dude, this is exactly what I want. And then it went into, it was like Springsteen and Deep Purple, and it was just all the things you would expect. Metallica. It's like mostly like hard rock stuff, classic hard rock. But
nice. Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right.
Yeah, it's very, very right up his alley. Anyway, so yeah, just to wrap up, Skeleton Crew, this was the first one I read. Survivor Type was adapted into the animated segment in the Creepshow TV series. Remember the doctor, maybe he's a dentist, and he's trapped on the desert island and he eats himself.
Okay.
Did you watch on the Creepshow?
I didn't
really.
I've only seen, I think, a couple episodes of the first season, so I didn't see that.
Really, it's one of the animated ones. Really brutal story and really cool like animated adaptation of that. And apparently The Jaunt is going to be made into a film by Plan B Entertainment, which that sounds really familiar. Who's Plan B Entertainment?
I don't know. That doesn't sound familiar to me, actually.
American production company. Oh, it's Brad Pitt's production company. Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston. started that production company. So we'll see. I mean, there is literally always some King property in some form of development, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch, like, you can see a bunch right now on like the Wikipedia that are supposedly in production.
Oh, let's look at if you don't mind, let's go through a couple. I'm interested.
So they're doing a Christine remake. Supposedly.
That is honestly one of my favorite books and movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like usually I really like the book or I really like the movie. The Mist and Christine are probably the ones that I really love both. And, aside from The Shining and Carrie and some of the classics.
Yeah. Brian Fuller is attached to direct.
Okay.
So possible. It could be pretty good. Let's see. This one I feel like has been in production for fucking ever. And like it's may or may not ever actually get made, but did you ever read, and this isn't a horror, it's The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon?
No, but I saw it on this list and it sounded familiar, but I don't think I know very much about it.
Yeah, I guess you could maybe call it tangentially horror. It's not like it's not like a monsters type of horror, but it's much more about like this girl's lost in the woods and just everything that like just surviving. It's again surviving on your own, but she's like a teenager or even younger, I think, and she's just obsessed with baseball. And so it's like I think she's carrying a radio most of the time, like one of those little handheld radios. And like that's what helps get her through her ordeal, because she can just listen to a baseball game, which King is famously a Red Sox fan. So
yeah, like a hardcore Red Sox fan. I actually posted a picture on our Instagram that the family that, and we'll get into the tour thing later, but the family that owns the tour company that I went on are acquaintances of the King family, and owned a bookstore in Bangor, Maine, where, he did one of his first signings and, had a relationship with him for a long time when he lived in the area. And they have pictures of him because he used to play in a band with a bunch of other writers. Mm-hmm. And he had this really picture of him. I forget what the name of the band was, of him like at a bar playing, and he's got like a cut off Red Sox t-shirt tucked into his jeans. And I was like, it's the most dad rock shit I ever saw in my life. But yeah, a lot of baseball comes up a ton. He was, famously a huge baseball fan. We actually saw like a unbelievably gorgeous Little League, pretty much the King Foundation has built like everything in Bangor, like their public pool, their Little League fields, like everything is from money donated from the King Foundation. They raised/donated like $13 million to build this unbelievably gorgeous library in Bangor too. But the Little League field is like fucking looks like a fucking minor league ballpark, and it's their Little League field, which is pretty cool. But
yeah. But yeah, so yeah, the Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon was like, it was a film that was supposed to be directed by George Romero, and it was like one of the last films he was attached to before he died. And then it like, I guess they're looking to maybe still go through with it. It's going to be produced by George Romero's wife, one that's still out there. Who knows?
Still floating out there in development hell somewhere.
Yeah. Yep. And then Edgar Wright is supposedly directing a remake of The Running Man.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I could see him doing a good job with that. Yeah. I guess one other one that I wanted to talk about a little bit, because I actually watched the movie before I read the book of this one, and I really loved both of them. Maybe it had something to do with the order that I read them in, but also I think the casting was so perfect for it. And this is a film that I just don't think gets enough credit in general, not just among King adaptations, but just in general, is The Dead Zone from '83. More of a sci-fi thriller than like pure horror, but I just don't fully understand why it doesn't get the credit. I theorize that it falls into the pitfall that we've seen with a lot of movies is, and I think this is kind of a King thing as well. And, correct me if you disagree. He's not great at titles. I remember waiting years and years to read The Stand because I'm like, that doesn't sound that interesting. And maybe I shouldn't be as sucked in by titles or turned off by titles. But if you gave me a synopsis of what The Stand's about, I'm like, oh, fuck, that sounds awesome. Right. But like as a kid, I'm like, The Stand? What is it, a courtroom drama? Like what, you know what I mean?
I think I'm not disagreeing that the titles are uninspiring. Mm-hmm. I would just also add that because he writes so much, he just has to come up with a title as quickly as possible.
Yeah, he's not agonizing over it. Yeah, he's prolific for a reason, I guess.
Right. He can't be because he just knows like if he doesn't use that title for one thing, he's going to use it for another. Because you just think of all the other ones like the Mangler, the Night Flyer. Like it's just okay, whatever. It's something. Get it out there. The Langoliers. the Langoliers sticks out because you're like, what the fuck is a Langolier? And then you go check that out.
Yeah. But like it's I don't know. I think the Dead Zone might suffer by that hand as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the Dead Zone, it's not a bad but it sounds very generic.
It sounds generic, and also it falls into the realm of like some of the other ones that are bad that have uninspiring titles like Dreamcatcher and Secret Window.
Yeah.
Like again, they're all kind of who gives a shit titles.
Yeah. The Secret Window. My God. Like that could be a young adult novel so easily too.
Exactly.
It's like Indian in the Cupboard and The Secret Window could, be two books you read in the same grade. But the Dead Zone, I mean, you just say that people, okay. But you say, David Cronenberg, based on a Stephen King novel, starring peak, and not peak in that he's went down, but like this is Christopher Walken at his best. This is coming off the heels of The Deer Hunter, Tom Skerritt, Herbert Lom, Brooke Adams, like just an amazing cast. Starring, you just get so much concentrated, amazing Christopher Walken. Not to mention an awesome villain in Martin Sheen too. And I don't know what the guy's name is that plays Martin Sheen's like bodyguard / advisor / mobster kind of, guy who walks around with him. But he's fucking scary too. Like it's fantastic. It's set in Castle Rock, Maine, so it's this very, and it's the same thing where so many of Stephen King's characters are heroes or main characters, whatever, are based, either loosely or fairly on the nose on him, whether they be, because there's always people working in mills, working in like laundry rooms, which are both things he did. He was a school teacher. He was an English teacher. So that's Johnny Smith, which is, a little on the nose because he wants him to be an everyman kind of thing.
Right.
He's a school teacher. Right. And of course, 900 of his characters are writers, and I know he's a big proponent, even just listening to the On Writing audiobook. He's a big proponent of the, old write what you know thing. So he does, right? He obviously does it extremely well, but I guess I won't spoil anything, but this school teacher is just an average regular guy who really tries hard to position this guy as like, he's your everyday, working class Joe, who, has this terrible accident and wakes up after being in a coma for years. And he now has these like abilities to, see into the future essentially. And when he comes in physical contact with people. And so now it's the only thing I don't like about or that I liked more about the book is the book I felt and maybe I will throw out a little spoiler alert here. And if you haven't watched the movie or read the book, maybe fast forward a little bit because they're both fantastic. But in the book, it feels like there is a little bit more meant to be a little bit more doubt in the reader's mind about whether Johnny is a reliable narrator or not. I seem to remember that a little bit, especially when you get into, the situation where essentially Johnny comes in contact with a politician, this up and coming politician who, when he shakes his hand, he sees that essentially he's going to start World War III. And in the film, it's played by Martin Sheen. And the whole idea is, basically a political assassin, in this case, Johnny, a would-be political assassin, be a good guy, is kind of the question he's asking. And in the novel, I feel like it's very much left for you to not for you to decide, because it does come to a conclusion, but it's kind of like, well, Johnny's a great guy, and he knows what's happening, and he knows the gift or curse or whatever you want to call it that has been given to him, even though he doesn't fully understand it. And he's not a bad guy. But then you're like, well, probably doesn't every political assassin think that? You know what I mean? So, and he even kind of says that in On Writing. So you're like, you don't know whether to trust Johnny's judgment or if he's just slowly losing his mind. In the film adaptation, it feels pretty clear. Like, you get to see a lot of Martin Sheen doing horrible things, and you just, I mean, he does horrible things in the book too. But I don't know. There just feels like there's a little bit more ambiguity in the book, whereas in the movie, it's a little bit more fed to you, I feel like, but it's still fantastic.
Yeah. Well, there you go, everybody. There's your reasons to check out both. I have to go back and watch the movie because I haven't watched it in a long, long time. I think probably the last time I saw it was maybe on Sci-Fi Channel or something. So,
yeah. One thing I'll say too about this, which I always find really intriguing, and I don't know why, is Johnny, again played by Christopher Walken. After his accident and waking up from the coma, he has obviously his hair is different, but he just decides to change his hairstyle completely, and he has this like really dorky haircut before the accident, and then he has this a little bit more like flashy haircut after, and he stops wearing glasses, and he just kind of turns into, like, I don't know, pops his collar a lot. It's just really interesting.
It's the original Spider-Man meme. You get bit by the spider, you become a superhero.
You got cool hair now. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Christopher Walken's just fucking brilliant in that movie. One thing I wanted to ask you too, because it feels like this is something you'd have a better grasp on than me, and if not, that's fine. But I'm considering, and this is a big commitment, but I've never read any of the Dark Tower series.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't. I was not into that either. Like, it seemed like such a big commitment that I didn't get into it.
I've never been, aside from the Goosebumps books, which are a series, but they're all standalone books, right? You can pick up any one of them in order and read them. I've never been a big series guy as far as books are concerned. Like, I usually read like more like standalone fiction novels or nonfiction. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that'll be my first. Like, I never read Tolkien. I was too old for Harry Potter. I never read, George R.R. Martin or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that'll be my first, series that I jump into.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I was never a really big series guy either. The one series I got into, and the Dark Tower was really popular, like when we were graduating high school, because that's when he started putting out like the end of the series. But then like that movie came out with Matthew McConaughey, and everybody said it was bad, so we didn't, like nobody felt inspired to go back to it.
Yeah.
So, but the one series I read, and like it's embarrassing but stupid, and I just read it because it was so bad, but the books were so easy to read. Do you remember the Left Behind series of like Christian books?
The only reason I know them is from the movie adaptations with Kirk Cameron, because I dated a girl in high school that a couple times dragged me to her like youth group.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to make us watch the Left Behind movies. And I was not welcome back because I made fun of them relentlessly because I was a smart ass skateboard kid. And I was like, this fucking sucks. I was just being an obnoxious dick, which they do suck. Don't get me wrong. They fucking suck fuck Kirk Cameron. But still, I was super obnoxious about it. But that's my only familiarity.
Yeah. I mean, for people who aren't even religious or don't pay attention, like it's all based off the last book of the Bible, which is Revelations, which is like barely should be included because it's just like weird, like political protest poetry. Like it was written after Christ. It has nothing to do with anything.
No, the book I'm reading a book right now too called what's it called? Who changed the Bible and why, or something like that. It's all about like basically the editing of the Bible. And there's no rhyme or reason to why, that went in there. But then, well, there is a rhyme or reason. It's to hint to control people. But also it was about, why don't we talk about the Nephilims, the giants, and how angels had sex with humans, and then that's why demons came about and shit like that. But you don't talk about that. Yeah, it's not as easy to explain away, some of those things. But
why don't we talk about the time Christ killed a kid?
Oh yeah, killed a bunch of, but he's just always was doing like just some nasty shit to people. But yeah, anyway, sorry, got off on topic. That's one of my the books, the apocryphal books are like one of my favorite topics to talk about. Yeah,
but yeah, that's we just got off track because we were talking about the Left Behind series. Because I mean, it was an interesting, like they're fucking poorly written, but but like it was interesting. I never watched any of the movies, but yeah, that was the only series I read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I my favorite. Probably one of the only things I remember about it was when the rapture would happen, and that's what would happen is the rapture happened, and then all the people who were saved, who had accepted Jesus Christ into their hearts, could go to heaven, and they would just get zapped there. And their clothes and shoes would be left behind, which cracked me up. And that was what really started my like I was just having a laugh fit watching it when the first person, like they walked into like the church and there's just like 1,000 pairs of shoes and shirts and shit laying on the ground. And I was like, where's all their glasses and tampons and jewelry?
Right.
Why just their clothes? It's so fucking stupid. It's just really poorly written.
You need your glasses in
Where's
heaven.
Everyone's pacemakers? You know what I mean?
Right,
like, what the fuck, you assholes, you stupid. Like, I just remember that was the thing that I remember we were really cracking up about, because I was like, where's everyone's tampons? Like, were literally no women like on their period when they got raptured? Is that part of the deal? You can't get raptured if you're on your period?
Yes, unclean.
Yeah, which I just got a huge kick out of that stipulation.
God will be mad.
Yeah, where are their earrings? Why isn't it like, wouldn't it be funny if you did that? Like you looked on one of the seats of the pew and there's a butt plug in one of their pants, something like that. But there never is, unfortunately.
Of course not. Nobody with a butt plug is going to heaven.
People who participate in carnal pleasures. No, you can't participate in carnal pleasures. But like, pacemakers, nothing like that. Just shoes, khakis, a lot of khakis laid behind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to go to heaven with your fucking replacement hip. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, your plate in your arm is there, but your khakis are staying at the church. Anyway, so any other particular works you want to talk about before we chat about the tour a little bit? Because I thought there was some pretty interesting stuff I thought that folks would get a kick out of.
No, nothing we have to really touch too much on. I just did want to, like, again, mention The Stand, because The Stand was fucking awesome. And that was one of, like, for, again, our younger audience, you're not going to remember this, but in the 90s, every couple years we would get a Stephen King miniseries. Mm-hmm. And it started with the Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
But, we got, The Stand was the first big one that I remember. Mm-hmm. Of, like, we have this TV event you got to sit down for. We're gonna, fucking 8 weeks of The Stand or whatever.
Oh, it was appointment viewing. Yes, very much so.
And then, like, Rose Red was another one. I think Storm of the Century a miniseries, or was that just a movie?
I think it was both. If I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Because there was a Storm of the Century, or at least a movie. Maybe it wasn't called Storm of the Century, but no, I'm thinking of The Perfect Storm, which is not the same. Yeah, that's not the same.
No, Storm, because I remember I got the for like a Christmas gift, my aunt gave me The Storm of the Century, the book. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but it was written in screenplay format. Like, Stephen King wrote it directly for screen. He didn't write a book, but they published the screenplay to read. And, like, I got this giant screenplay, and I'm like, why does it look like this? I don't
That's
get
so
it.
Strange, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like, in my later years, when I decided I actually wanted to get into screenwriting, it was a very cool thing to have.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's I don't believe I've ever seen the Stand miniseries, but I would like to go back and see it, or go back and watch it.
M-O-O-N, that spells moon.
Oh man, that book. Oh, I remember, like, there are a few parts that was probably one of the first books I remember, because, the Goosebumps books, I always love the twist. There'll always be some little twisty ending. And I remember there's some big surprise events that happen in the Stand that you're like, Jesus Christ. Like, you just read it 3 times to, like, wait, did that just happen? Kind of thing. Like, but in any case, so I'll talk a little bit about this tour, which was really fun. It was very, I'll explain, I fairly low rent, very folksy local tour company. I don't mean any of that in a bad way. It was super fun, really charming. It was kind of a mom and pop type of operation. For those of you who are interested in it, or if you live up there, or you're anywhere close to Bangor, Maine, or you're vacationing, if you're going to Acadia or Bar Harbor, whatever, it's definitely worth it if you are a Stephen King fan or a horror fan at all. But it's called SK Tours. SK Tours. It's sk-tours.com. I think they have a Facebook page they post a lot of stuff on. If you put, like, SK Tours of Maine in Facebook, you'll find it on there. They're really, really cool, really nice people. They have this really cute little gift shop where they have a bunch of stuff for sale, and, movie posters up on the wall and all that stuff, which I just love all that. They pulled up, we got on a tour bus, a little miniature tour bus that there's probably 2, 4, 6, maybe 12 or 14 people on the tour. Mm-hmm. So the bus was full with that many people, but there's, like, big It painted on the side. It's like Tim Curry's It, painted on the side, and then on the back has got the newer, It is on the back, and so they took you to a bunch of places not only from Stephen King's upbringing, but places that were inspired by the movie. And you really, truly can't go anywhere in Bangor without seeing something or hearing something that is tied to Stephen King or one of his works. It's like, it's kind of, of course, being on a tour, you hear every one of them. But interestingly enough, after we went on the tour, my brother and my dad and I, we went to Bangor Beer Company, which is a little brewery nearby. We had lunch, had a couple beers, very nice folks there. And they were like, oh, where are you from? We're telling them. what are you in town for? We're on vacation. We just did this, this tour. And everyone knows, oh yeah, there was this one server there we were talking to, and she couldn't have been more than about 25 years old. She didn't know anything about Stephen King, but of course she knew, like, he does a lot for the community, all this stuff. She was like, did you guys go over to the Oriental Jade? And I was like, what? And she's like, oh, we figured you were here because the Oriental Jade. And we're like, no. They were like, the Chinese restaurant right next door, they literally share the building with, was the Chinese restaurant from It. That they grow up, they meet in at, like, the round table that they meet in is literally there. And so we went over and there's the table, which was pretty cool. And that was completely by accident. So it's like, it really is like every inch of this town, like, has something associated with it. So, a couple of the spots that I found really cool. We went to, speaking of The Stand, one of the main characters in The Stand, his first name escaped, but Flag. What's his last name? Flag.
I think Flag's his last name. Yeah.
Flag is his last name. I can't remember his first name. And then he also goes through a bunch because he's in the Dark Tower series too, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, they took us to this building, which was this kitchen supply, like restaurant supply store called RM Flag, which was right up the street from his old, like, apartment, which is where he got the name, even with the 2 G's and stuff, which was kind of cool.
Okay. Randall Flag.
So Randall RM. Flag. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we went to this really gorgeous, and listen, I'm a stereotypical, wannabe goth nerd kid. So, like, I love, cemeteries and stuff like that, but this really cool like, I can't remember what they called it, but they called it like a garden cemetery. So it's a very non-traditional, it's not like the just flat plots. They build up the dirt, like, around the gravestones to make it look like they're their own individual little gardens, and it's, like, apparently a nightmare to keep up, so they don't do it anymore. But there's, like, all over these really steep hills in these in this graveyard. There's grave markers, big ones, little ones, all over these really steep hills. It was just so different than any, graveyard I've ever seen in the Midwest. But they took us to the spot, a couple of filming spots from Pet Sematary. Cool. That were very recognizable, and the guy was like, that was where the camera is, so, like, imagine it from this, and we're like, oh shit, yeah, that's right where it was. And that was, like, when Stephen King was playing the priest in Pet Sematary, when they're at the funeral, and, like, we were kind of standing in that spot. He took us to a couple of places where, as you might imagine, a lot of Stephen King, tourism happens. And one thing that was really cool, Stephen King used to walk like 4, 7, 10 miles a day. You used to go on these crazy long walks, and it would a lot of times be the exact same route that he would walk. And so you would see his inspiration for various things on these walks. Like, one of them was a gravestone in this cemetery that, was from the 1700s or something. And apparently back then, when, a lot of times now, if you see, like, the grave marker of a child that had died, it's like an angel or something, like a cherub or something like that. Mm-hmm. But apparently back then it was really common to put, like, a lamb, or even like a lamb, like a slaughtered lamb, like with its, like, arms, or with its, like, legs removed and stuff. And so there's this little grave marker, and of course there were like 1 million pennies all over it because of the people, tourists that had come. But there was this small little grave marker with a picture of a lamb with no legs that just said Georgie on it, which was really cool. Obviously incredibly somber, but very cool. And then he took it to, the gravestone that says, like, Carrie in big letters on it. So they were like, I think, some of these you wonder if it's speculation as to whether or not, he got it from there. It leaked into his subconscious, but the Georgie one was pretty cool. We went, to the place where they filmed a lot of the scenes from not Skeleton Crew, Graveyard Shift. If you've seen Graveyard Shift, with the big rats and all that shit. Was kind of cool. Like I said, we went to the radio station. I experienced my first Moxie, which is a soda that I only knew from Mark Summers talking about it on Unwrapped in like the early 2000s.
Sure.
But it's mentioned in a lot of King books. It's a regional soda. I think it's made by like Coke now. But it's fucking disgusting. It's like the Malort of soda. You know what I mean? It's like, it just tastes like, I can only describe it as, it tastes like if you took Dr. Pepper, made it more sweet, less carbonated, and then just melted like a handful of Ricolas into it. Like that's what it tasted like.
Yeah. So you can actually get Moxie at Market District.
Oh, no shit. Really?
In Robinson. So I've had it, and I agree. Like, I would never say, hey, pass me a cool Moxie. Like, it's not I don't know what the history of this soda is, but it for sure at one point was sold either as a tonic or an elixir.
Yes.
Off the cart, driven by some slime bag.
Exactly.
Like, it's some
it started
sort of
as
herbal.
a medicinal elixir. Yeah. That was supposed to cure like stomach problems and nausea and indigestion and
right.
you know, God knows what else. Right. So it very much started that way. Same thing as Coke, you know.
Right.
So,
but Coke started with cocaine in it. So that's why
it had an
made
active
you feel
ingredient.
Good.
Right.
Yeah.
Moxie just had gross herbs.
Yeah. Moxie was like ground up leaves off the ground.
Yeah.
And they said, that's good for you, isn't it?
it's like, I think my brother described it as it's Dr. Pepper mixed with a Camel Crush.
Oh God.
Like because it has this like menthol-y kind of thing to it. But
it's veterinarian pepper.
Yeah. Oh, it was yucky. But yeah, of course the bus had a bunch of like, you know, Stephen King, like there was a little, I'll post a picture. There was a little Pennywise like popping up from the back of the bus and stuff. It was kind of fun. We went to a Dysart's, I think you say it is, Dysart's. I think it's actually Dysart's restaurant, which is a small little regional chain, which I think only a few locations are still around. And they are little gas stations / diners. And they were the inspiration for Trucks, which was, of course, then turned into Maximum Overdrive. Like I said, we went to this gorgeous, you know, library in Bangor. You know, we went to the place where, and I'm going to forget his name, but the place in downtown Bangor where, you know, and I think is it chapter 2, I believe it is, where the gay kid is attacked by the like shitty homophobic street toughs. I don't know if that's it or it chapter 2. But that apparently was based on a true story. A local guy who's, you know, in the 60s, you know, gay kid in the 60s was thrown off a bridge into like 6 inches of water by a bunch of like fucking assholes, and he died. And to this day, they still like celebrate it every year, you know, this guy, because it was like, that's why Maine and frankly, some of, you know, a lot of New England, Vermont, Connecticut and stuff are a lot more progressive in terms of gay rights and stuff like that than a lot of other areas, you know, because people talk about Maine as being like the West Virginia of New England. You know, it's like really rural, really, you know, what you'd expect to not be particularly progressive in that sense. In Maine, for the most part, at least of what I experienced of it, very much was. And I think they credit a lot of that to, you know, obviously this horrible tragedy, and then, you know, the way the community kind of rallied around it to like raise awareness and have that discussion about, queer rights in the fucking 1960s, which no one was having, certainly in rural America. We saw some like cool, spots where it's like a lot of deduction happening by like hardcore King fans to say like, okay, so we know this street was named after this street and this street was named after this street. And so we know that this apartment complex was actually where this character lived. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of that, which was kind of cool though, to like put a place to the name. Of course we went to, saw the big lumberjack, the Paul Bunyan statue, which was really cool. We went to the big, water tower thing that like Pennywise in and like rolls down the hill and all that stuff. And we went there, saw some places, where Stephen King, there's a lot of like, that bench is where he wrote Cujo, you know what I mean? Kind of stuff, which is fun. You know what I mean? And then of course, I think I posted this already. We went to, again, this was kind of one of those deduction things where it's like, okay, it happened on this street, which is adjacent to this street. Cause, for the most part, he's pretty descriptive in some of those locations in and around like Derry in it. There was the storm drain that supposedly Georgie first meets Pennywise. And of course, to be, a smart ass, the guy pulls out like a little arm and a little Pennywise mask and like puts it out of the storm drain. So we all go up, and I'm a sucker for taking corny pictures like that. So
yeah.
And then we went to Stephen King's house, his former residence. That's now there's two houses nearby that he like renovated and turned one into like a writer's retreat, and then the other one is going to be like I guess some literary archive, but he no longer spends any significant amount of time there. But it was really cool. There was like he's got the creepy gate, and there was apparently a giant oak tree that had been cut down years and years ago right in the front yard, and he hired this like amazing chainsaw artist to come and do this like statue of a bunch of like references to his novels and stuff for like people.
Oh, sick.
So even when we were there with this bus full of like, like I said, 12 or 14 people out there taking pictures, even we were only there for probably 15 minutes, just standing outside the gate, taking pictures and stuff. And there was probably 8 or 10 other cars that pulled up in that time to do the same thing. So it's like a big tourist location. People take that kind of pilgrimage, but yeah, overall it was really cool. I, couldn't help but buy myself a little room key tag from the Overlook Hotel, to use as a keychain. And, that's, there's a lot of little tchotchkes and things that you could buy and all that stuff. So it was really fun. And like I said, even if some of it is like wishful thinking by hardcore fans of like, this is where that happened in the Stephen King universe, it was just cool to put a place or, to some of the stories. And, being a fan of his work, it's like, Bangor is very much what you expect. It's it feels like what you would expect Derry or even, Castle Rock to be. It's like this working class, fairly, small town in an extremely rural, like it is a huge city by Maine standards. It's like this third largest city in Maine, but there is no large cities in Maine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like it feels like a tiny little town, but it's like, might as well be the metropolis for, 90% of the people who live in this extremely rural, large state. So it felt like that. It felt very isolated. It felt very like kind of trapped in time. And it was, it was just a cool experience.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I mean, I would like to just go up into the New England area in general. I want to get some seafoods. Yeah,
you definitely, they're big on the lobster up there. I would say so much so that it's annoying. Like so the reason we went up there was me, my wife and 2 kids, my brother, his wife and their baby, and then my parents, is because it's my we planned it last year. We ended up taking the trip this year for a variety of reasons, but it's my parents' 40th wedding anniversary.
Oh, okay.
So we wanted to go up, and my parents, my mom always wanted to go to Maine and all that stuff. So we went up, and of course we did the touristy things. We did some really cool things. We took a ferry over to this like island, and we went and had a lobster roll and all the things you would expect.
Did you go and see the lighthouses?
We saw some dang old lighthouses. We stayed right near Acadia, so we did a lot of hiking and stuff, which was really fun. Mm-hmm. But lobster and spelled phonetically like that. Lobster is the y'all of Maine. Like, my brother lives in Nashville, and you can get every annoying, white crew neck shirt with a black script that just says, blessed y'all or whatever bullshit right. At every fucking touristy little gift shop in Nashville.
Oh, wait, hold on. Is there any merchandise that you found that says live, laugh, lobster?
Oh my God. I did not see it, mostly because I was sick as a dog, and like during the shopping trips in Bar Harbor and stuff, Bahaba. And the people, we rented a house on Verbo, and the owners were from there, like born and raised in Bahaba. Yeah. And they like, it couldn't have been more like that. That's how she said it. But I'm sure if there wasn't, if I didn't see it, I'm sure it was there. Let's put it that way. Okay. Live, laugh, lobster. But holy shit, it is lobster is annoying. And even the guy that the blueberries are legit though. Everything blueberry flavor up there is fucking fantastic. Yeah. The blueberries are so good. But like, if I had never ate another lobster again, I'm all right. It's not that good. I'll be honest with you. Like, much prefer crab. I don't know. It's just it's kind of it feels a little tourist trappy. Like, yeah,
sure.
Even like, we got in the bus, to go on this tour, and the guy's like, born and raised in Bangor. He's like, if I ever eat another fucking lobster again, it'll be too soon. Like, it's just a big ass fucking sea bug. It's fine. It's fine. And they just fucking steam them up there. So it's not like it's adding a lot of flavor to it, No,
you just steam it, a little butter, a little lemon.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I don't know. I could probably do without ever eating another lobster in my life, but we had a lot of fun. So, anyway, yeah. All right. So once again, guys, go out there and get ready for our September Showdown episode. If you want to watch the films we're going to discuss ahead of time, so you can kind of experience it along with us. Yeah, we're going to have Shocker, which Matt from Came With The Boys podcast is going to be defending. Shocker from 1989. Steve's going to be talking about Opera, Dario Argento from 1987. And then your boy is going to be talking about Pieces from 1982. So getting into some slasher business for the spooky season, guys. And as always, go ahead and, rate us on them social medias. I'm sorry, on those podcast apps, or, reach out to us on the social medias and give us some suggestions. Follow us for some spooky shit over there. If you do end up reviewing us, I got some more stickers, so send them our way. Send us your screenshot it or whatever. I believe you. Just send us a little note on the social medias and say, hey, I reviewed you on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, and here's my address, and I'll send you some dang old stickers in the mail.
Yeah.
And if I owe you some stickers, you probably already got them, because it's been a couple weeks ago, but I mailed out a whole shitload of them. But if you don't have some and I owe you some stickers and I forgot about you, I apologize. Send us another note and I'll get some in the mail for you, because I replenish the stickies. All right. Anything else?
Yeah. MOON. That spells lobster.
Guys, live, laugh, lobster. You guys. Join us next week as we do a little showdown business for the Halloween's Forever crew. I'm Brian.
I'm Steve.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.